Everybody, yes, we're all live. So what's good?
Everything's good, bro. I was just
Yeah,
doing some. Oh yeah,
I'm
it's good. Oh, that's good. Oh,
yeah,
I
it's
haven't seen Ricardo. I haven't seen that in a long time. Is that Brugal? That's part of Brugal family.
no,
Which family
that's
is that?
hard. That's some French. No, that's
Okay, okay.
some French stuff. It's called a pastis. It's like it's really yeah. So yeah, let me see. Yep.
Wow,
So
I like this platform,
I don't
bro.
see
This is
anybody.
good. Somebody
Yeah,
may
yeah.
show up.
Usually I use yeah. So make sure you never know, because I haven't really been. Let me something. Let me put. I haven't really been live lately, but you be laughing, think people be saying. So like wow, like I said, nigga shit.
Bro. I'm gonna tell you something. Do you hear about that black congressman that gets up and tells everybody that black people were better off during Jim Crow? Did you hear about that? I can't think of his name. He's a
That is
fat guy.
crazy. No, I didn't.
Fat guy.
I
He
didn't hear
said
that.
that, bro. He said
Really,
that. I was like, "What
gotta be
are I'm gonna
you
tell you,
gotta
it
be fat
was.
to say some nonsense like this.
He did. He did. He was saying his father
Wow. Yeah.
was. Yeah. What's his name? Did you look it up already? I'm trying to think of that guy's name.
Let me see. Let me see.
And he supports. He's a Trump supporter, and he's a Republican congressman, big black guy. It just surprised me, with that stupid remark. I knew he was stupid for being, in that whole understanding as a black man, but to really say that was just. I'm sorry. I know this is politically incorrect, but he's retarded. This guy's just he's he should be sitting on that little yellow bus that pick people up, not the big bus, the little bus, because this guy's not.
You
He
talk
doesn't.
about Baron Donalds.
I think I'm the
Baron Donalds,
congressman.
right?
I don't know. Let me
Yeah.
Byron Donalds, right? Let me see here.
Baron. Yeah. 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 Actually,
Yeah,
yeah.
Byron.
Yeah. Let me.
Yeah, I think so. And when he had made a comment, he said that black people were better off during Jim Crow. And what he failed to mention was that, you know, the reason why black people were better off as a homogenized group of people in context, they weren't, but they were at the same time. What he failed to mention is the other side of that coin. What actually happened is black people in America had their own communities. They were segregated communities, and there was a lot of
Yeah.
racism and all of that shit going on all the time. However, during this time frame, they had an opportunity to live their lives pretty much separate from white people, the black diaspora. They had their own butcher shops, their own banks, their own insurance companies, their own school systems. They had everything uh, in this whole little block of area, and they didn't have a lot of money. Even matter of fact, back during the 40s and 30s and 20s, all of this is Jim Crow time as well. Uh, White banks, which were 99% of the banks in the country, were prohibited by law. It's a part of, you can look up the laws, it's still in the book. They were prohibited by law to um, give loans to the black community. As a matter of fact, what they actually did, remember you ever heard of the land grab where everybody moved out west and they started getting land from New York all the way to
Yes.
California? Well, during this time, they prohibited black people from partaking in the land
Mm-hmm.
grab. Remember, it was Jim Crow. They couldn't go out at night, couldn't be out after 6 p.m. And if you were caught in white America after that, you were lynched, you were killed. It was just that simple. So black people missed out on that great wealth transfer. As a matter of fact, most of the wealth today, the second most popular reason there's wealth in America today is the land grab, where white people took the land and they actually and they start bequeathing it to their children. So they get a
Wow.
1,000-acre farm and they give it to their daughter, and their daughter gives it to their kids, and their kids give it to their kids. So they carry this wealth, this generational wealth with them. Black people had none of that. But also, the number one reason why there's wealth in America today, and I did a study on it, and you can look this up real quick. You can just look it up. The number
I
one
will look it up.
resource in all of America since its inception, comparatively speaking, with the economy and the government at that time, was slavery. Slavery was bigger than all of the railroads, all of the communications companies early back then, tap, 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 Morse code, all of the real estate, all of the other businesses, cotton, corn, steam engines, boats. It was more lucrative and profitable and more money in it than all of them, to include all sports put together. Slavery. No white person had to
Wow.
pay labor. They had no labor costs. So the majority of the wealth, this is why when people start talking about reparations, they don't want to hear this part. The majority of white America who indulge in slavery, and forget about that. In the North, we welcome slaves in. No, that's BS. It was a business for them. What they would do is the same thing that Trump and a few other people right now are doing with the Mexican influx of refugees. Now they would let them come in, and they would work them, and then they would turn them right back in. They work them to death, turn them right back in, and let them in. And it was a business. And over a period of time, more money and wealth was accumulated in the American culture, as well as the entire country was beneficiary of slave trade, to
Wow.
include the North. And besides, so you'll know, back then in the 17 and 18 and 1900s, the Republican Party of today that Donald Trump leads was actually the Democratic Party of that day. So the people who are Democratic today were actually, they had the same kind of platform as the Republican parties have today back then. They reversed roles over the past 200 years.
So if you're telling me the Democrat back then are the Republican of now.
Exactly. Same thing. They just been flip-flopping back for hundreds of years. Now,
And so
then I want to
what
say
a Democrat then?
the Democrat was, they had these people called carpetbaggers. You know, the Southern people would come in and they would try to take control of different areas, politically speaking, but they weren't from that area. And so Congress had to make laws that you had to actually be in that area to be a representative of that area and all that. So they had a lot of carpetbaggers coming in and out. They had people from the South coming in because they lost the Civil War. So they created the Emancipation Proclamation Lincoln did. When he created it, part of the Emancipation Proclamation was the right to vote. But it was coming out not in the 16th Amendment, but in the 17th Amendment. So when it actually happened, when Black people got the right to vote, they were considered 3/5 of a person. So for every 5
3/5
Black
of a
votes,
person.
3/5 of a person. So you had to have 2 Black people to make 1 vote. You got 1.1 vote with 2 Black people. When white people can stand there, and because they didn't want Black people influencing the outcome of any election, because it would be on their behalf. That was the law,
Okay.
3/5 of a person. But in addition to that law, they had all kinds of other ways to keep Blacks disenfranchised from the voting booth. What did they do? They made them take a test. If you knew the form, if you knew how to calculate, even though this wasn't around back then, but it was like a question like Einstein's theory of relativity, E = mc squared. If you
Okay.
didn't know how to take, if you know how to know that answer, which Black people were prohibited to read and write without fear of reprisal,
Wow.
death, hanging. If you didn't know that, you couldn't vote. They had these tests, these tests they would give Black people. So time goes on and on. I'm just getting back to Byron Donald's ignorant self. This is one ignorant congressman. So what did he do?
Okay.
He gets on camera and he says that Black people were better off during Jim Crow. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, what actually happened is they actually freed the slave. But here's a slave with no
Wow.
education, zero schooling, zero money, no land, no education, no allies, no system that can accept them back in any kind of way to assist them other than sharecropping. I'm just going to give you a little history lesson here because this is something I talk about all the time. But I'll give our audience that. So they said, black people are going to sharecrop. And everybody said, yeah, we're going to have black people sharecrop. But before the sharecrop, you ever heard of the term 40 acres in a mule?
Yep, I've heard it. Yep.
40 acres in a mule. Lincoln promised 40 acres to every free black slave family. So what he did was he actually apportioned land all up and down the South Carolinian, North Carolinian, down the Florida border for black people. And he started moving black people onto the properties. And they were getting their 40 acres. Because in
Okay.
order to till 40 acres, you needed a mule. So no one ever really promised a mule. It just became a part of, we got our 40 acres, we need a mule now to till the land and earn some money and, build some crops and all of that. They never got the mule. So what happens the day that Lincoln gives all this land over and the Emancipation Proclamation is full effect? What did they do? They assassinated Lincoln, and the next president that came in within a week repealed the 40 acres and a mule. And all the black people that had taken possession, thousands of families up and
Wow.
down the eastern seaboard, were confiscated their land right in one fell swoop. And they were put out, and the white owners, this is what everybody needs to know. Every white owner in America that lost slaves due to the Emancipation Proclamation, the Southerners and the Northerners, all cashed in because the government was paying life wages for each slave. So they would pay, so if you had 20 slaves, the US government would pay that slave owner, that previous slave owner, 20 life payments for each of their slaves. So they got 20 bounties,
Wow.
free money from the government. Plus, they had gotten all that labor and built all of their cotton farms and dairy farms and cattle on the backs of slaves, and never paid them one single penny. The slave owners get paid. The whites in the South took the land back from the Negroes. And here's what else happened, so you'll understand why Jim Crow is the dumbest thing this congressman could have ever said. And that is, once they took the land back, we had displaced black people, ex-slaves all over the place. That's when the prison systems got involved. So they started, until this very day, they started arresting black people to keep the prisons full to use it as slave labor. That's what they did. They locked them up, put them on chain gangs, and that was it. So for vagrancy, that's what vagrancy laws came from, this part of our history. Now, here's what else happened. As soon as they took the land back and they were displaced, white people were getting a lot of flack from all kinds of groups all over America. People like Frederick Douglass and all these people were screaming out injustice, injustice. And what did they do next? They said, okay, we'll do sharecropping, where we'll own the land. Black folks, it was illegal on legislation, on the books. It was illegal for black people and Chinese people, because they had what they call the Chinese Exclusion Act back then too. Well, Chinese were just as effed as black, just as fucked as blacks, except for they were lighter complexion, and they had this community of themselves that white people didn't understand, plus the language they didn't understand. And Chinese is still Chinese. You had 5,000 different kind of brothers and sisters out there, black people who spoke all different languages and a little bit of English and no education, hardly any, with the exception of very few people, mainly up in New York and that part of the country. What did they do next? They started sharecropping. They go in. Listen. They go in and they say, "Listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to let you share. We're going to let you till this farm and grow your crops on our land, and you pay us a fee. Every payday you pay us a fee, and that way you make money. You get to sell your crops at market, and on and on and on, and everybody's happy." Immediately, what did the evil men and evil doers do? They said, okay, well, we need to till land. We need equipment because we don't have that either. Well, the white man said, hey, I'll rent you this hoe. I'll rent you this rake. I'll rent you this tractor, this oxen, and all of this. I'll rent all that to you. And then I want you to go and till that land. And then and when it's time to harvest, we'll sit down and see what we got, and we'll go from there. Well, every time they went to harvest, let's say the black family got $50,000 worth of crop they did. The rental of equipment would cost 10,000. The rental of the hoe would be another 2,000. The rental the oxen to feed them and house them would be another 3 or 5,000 until it got to like $48,900. And they say, okay, give me $48,000 worth of your crop, and you go sell your $1,000 worth of crop, because that's what you get, because you rented our tools, you used our land, you're paying us a fee, and it became what they did. They basically, black people became indentured servants to white people, again, through contract of labor on the farm, earning minimum wage for months and months and months of work. And where the white people who owned those farms would take the bounty of 49 to 50,000, and the black people walk away with $500 or $900 for the whole year. This is why when people say stuff like this, Congressman said, is ridiculous. Now, let's go back one more step so I can add this to it. This is what, now I have 50 other stories about what happened in the history of our country. I do. I have many stories, all true, all verifiably true, all can be researched back to the Library of Congress. All of this is well documented stuff. Then what did they do? They enact Jim Crow laws. This was a congressional series of laws, the segregation laws of you can't drink at this fountain, you can't show up at this building, you can't be out after night, you can't see a white woman, you can't see a white man. All of these kinds of things people couldn't do or prohibitive through Jim Crow. Plus, you couldn't be out after dark. You couldn't ride on transportation. You had to sit in the back of the bus. All of that came out of Jim Crow. So what did black people do? As resourceful as we are everywhere we've ever been in the world, what do? We said, okay, we can't buy your suits. We'll make our own. We can't get your insurance. We'll open our own insurance companies. Black people pooled their monies and built industry throughout all of the United States. Just about every major black community in the country was productive and prosperous, separate from white people. And it took care of each other. Each community did. So what happened? All that labor, all that money from inception of, say, 1492 all the way up to today. No black people have been paid reparations for anything. All of those would be trillions of dollars of labor. Never one dime. That's why white folks don't want to hear it. Now, I'm not a racist by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a black and white issue. It's racism, period. Why? Because
it is a fact. I mean, those are facts. I mean, yeah.
Bro, people look at black people, even Trump was echoed saying that, what did he say? He said when he was driving past the some ghetto somewhere in America, he said, I don't see how those people live like that. Why don't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps and do something about it? How in the hell can they do that? The education system is just as poor as it was back then within black communities across the country, to include a lot of Hispanic communities now and poor white communities. Basically the same. The haves do not want the have-nots to have anything. So what did they do? See, because racism really didn't exist during slavery. You were just a slave. That was it. It didn't matter what color you were. You could be light-skinned black, black-skinned black. It don't matter. You were a slave. That's it. If you had 4% black in you, you were a slave. That was the law. 4% black in your blood, you were black. Period. What they didn't know was that, everybody has about 4% black in them. But they have no way to measure it. They didn't know that back then. But including the whitest people on the planet got black in them, because that's where all life originated, in Africa. That DNA is in all of us.
That's deep.
So what did they do? What did they do to black people? Black people, there was and this is important. You ever heard of the term "Make America Great Again"?
Of course, I've had.
And you can look this one up. You're gonna love this one. You're gonna love this one. "Make America Great Again" was coined in 1920, between 21 and 24, during a thing called the T-Dome scandal, where it was a Ku Klux Klan convention where they were having politicians show up. And the Ku Klux Klan motto is and was, back then even, "Make America Great Again." That's exactly where it comes from. As a matter of fact, I'll send it over to you, my write-up on it. I wrote an article on it. I'll send it over to you here in a few seconds. I tell you, I mean, you find out something new every day. Select all. Copy that.
Wow.
I'm gonna put it in your WhatsApp so you'll get it. This is all true. It's all verifiable too. And see, people don't know why they follow things. They just, some people, they say you can fix dumb. You can always fix dumb because you can educate people, but you can't fix stupid. Stupid is just stupid.
That is crazy.
I'm sending this over to you so you have it.
And I bet lots of people don't know that part of history.
They don't. Paste that. Paste that. Trying to get it to copy over. Select all. Copy that. So there you go. I just sent it over to you.
Okay, let me see.
It's a true story,
Yeah,
bro. This
just
is true. Most people don't know. And people think that black
let
people
me
are lazy. There's
see.
nothing lazy about black people. Nothing at all. It's just that when there's no opportunity, there's nothing in your neighborhood. You know, as a matter of fact, during and I wanted to get to this part. I just wanted to make that "Make America Great Again" thing known. But during this same time period, you had Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all of these people during Jim Crow, uh, screaming for rights. Now, in one hand, Malcolm X had it right. The other hand, Dr. Martin Luther King had it right. They both had something wrong with each one of them. They miscalculated how America would react to the newfound freedoms and the adjustment of the Civil Rights Act or any act for Black people. What they didn't know was how the government, banks, institutions of learning, lending, and health would treat Black people. As a matter of fact, as a matter of law, in most southern states, the law was you could not treat Black people at white hospitals with white medicine. So the idea was, so if we can't get rid of Black people through
Oh
killing them,
wow.
and we can't get rid of them, then um, we're going to go ahead and just let them die off. We're going to just keep them sick and keep them dying off. And that's what's happening today in every undertrodden neighborhood in America. Black people are being killed systematically through lack of medicine, lack of education, lack of ability to get out of there, lack of a lot of things. That's why it's this way. It's not because Black people are lazy or everybody, all they care about are sneakers. If all you ever had was a pair of sneakers, that's what you're going to think about. How are you going to know you got a better life out there if you've never been out there, if you've never been educated to that, if you don't understand and can appreciate those things? So you keep a person down long enough, they're going to begin to
Wow.
believe that they are animals, and that's exactly what happened. And all of this, and then I wrote this and I posted it somewhere and a lot of people,
But it's okay. I want to. What I want to do, I
go
want to
ahead.
share what you wrote. So
Mhm.
hold
Go
on
ahead.
1 second. Where
You know,
share this again?
and then
Okay, this is what you wrote. Okay, this is what you
exactly.
wrote. Right. I don't know if it's actually. Let me try to see. This
Yeah,
can we
I can
zoom
see
it?
it.
How can I zoom it?
You got to make it bigger.
You
I
can see
think
it, right?
yeah, I can see it.
Hold on.
I'm
Okay,
just
I'll
making
make
it
it
bigger. That's all.
quick. Okay, okay. View.
I can't read it though. And put it about 140 or something like that.
I know. And I think
I
that's
normally
now
hit
it's wrong. Hold
Control
on, hold on.
Arrow.
Okay, hold on. How can I? Well, let me do something. Let me save as.
I'm gonna share another one with you in a few minutes as we talk. I got plenty. I write articles all the time, bro.
Yeah. But let me read it though. You're saying that the term "Make America Great Again" as its providence intertwined with the 1924 T-Dome scandal, where it was first
Absolutely.
coined by the KKK. This was the racist
Look it
slogan.
up. Quickly look it
In the
up. Quickly look that up.
1920s, the Ku Klux Klan experienced. Okay, let me see. Let me read it first. In 1920, the Ku Klux Klan experienced a resurgence in the United States, becoming more influential and visible in public life. This period saw the Klan promoting a vision of America that they claimed was great, rooted in white supremacy, nativism, and conservative values. One significant event in this era was a rally held by the KKK at the Tea Dome, which was a symbolic location due to association with the infamous Teapot Dome scandal, a major political corruption case of the time. At this rally, the Klan gathered to voice their opposition to the social changes and increasing diversity in America. They used this platform to propagate their message of returning to what they saw as a pure and ideal American past. It was during this rally that the slogan "Make America Great Again" was perpetually coined, encapsulating the desire to revert the country to a time before the perceived threats of immigration, civil rights movement, and modernity. The Tidum rally highlighted the Klan's effort to gain mainstream acceptance and influence public policy. They aimed to capitalize on the fears and uncertainties of many Americans during the post-World War I period, advocating for a restrictive and exclusionary vision of American greatness. Slogan would later resurface in various political contexts, detached from its original connotations and history associated with the Klan. When has America ever been the kind of great that Donald Trump wants America to go back to? From what I see in here, the only great era he wants to go back to is slavery. Japanese internment camps, war with Mexico, segregation, the 1920 Ku Klux Klan, and Jim Crow. That is
Ta-da.
deep, brother.
Yeah,
That is
that's what
deep.
you and I.
Wow.
We've traveled all over the world together, and we've seen brothers out in the world doing some amazing stuff. But when we get to the United States, there's a
Indeed.
mentality that occurs in the U.S. that is indicative of the U.S. It's the craziest thing. The same brother in the United States acts differently there than he does overseas. It's crazy to watch
That is
how
correct. That is correct.
it's called and just I want to go through, I want to say it real quick, then I want to go back to about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X if I could. I've written on both of them as well. And we can share it over time. Every time we do one of these, I'll bring up a paper. You'll love it. Because I made a lot of enemies in the world speaking the truth, but I've also made a lot of friends. But
Well, the truth will set you free.
yeah, brother, it definitely will. What I'm actually saying is the documents that you're seeing right now, they're readily available. You get very few hits on the research material behind it. Why?
Okay.
People
I want to look some research on this.
don't want
Definitely.
to know. You got it. They don't want to know how bad they really have it. So black people never really take the initiative as a culture to go back and research and demand. Our politicians of today say things like they don't even say reparations, and the few that do get beaten down by white America or everybody else. And people will say dumb shit like, "It wasn't me. I didn't do it." That's okay. It wasn't you, but it was your family until this very day. Your whiteness and the house you inherited, the company you inherited, or your community inherited, and the streets that are paved in your neighborhood but not in mine, and the benefits from the government, the loans on the books. You know where the term redlining came from? Back in the 1940s, all the way up until
No.
today. Till today, from the 1940s till today, they said that black people, a matter of fact, the U.S. government, Congress, sat down in their appropriations committees and their ways and means and all of these committees, and they said these areas in the country that are marked in red, which were all the black neighborhoods in the country, cannot receive funds because there's a low return on the
Wow.
investment in that area. This was the law. So white people went across America getting loans, building country clubs, building homes, building communities, the suburbs, the whole 9 yards. And when a black person was able with money to move into some of these areas as a token black person, what happened? What happened? They would go to the same bank that their next door neighbor went to get their loan, and they would get preferential rates at 1%, 2%, 3%. They would charge black people 19% for the same house right next door. Suburbs are like that, just the same,
Wow.
duplicated. That's what happened. The entire existence of black people. That still happens to this very day. Redlining, but more people have adopted the insurance as well as the real estate agents. They redline all the time. You know how we did. We tried to get in the Trump building in New York. They wouldn't even let us get a place in there. Remember that? We tried to get a Trump. Remember we were down there trying to get an apartment
I
down there
remember that.
across
Yep.
from the United
With
Nations.
truck. Yep.
And Trump himself and
They
his
didn't.
people
They didn't want to
didn't.
listen. I
But
remember
white
that.
people go in there, they say, sure, we have plenty of units. You and I couldn't get a unit. Couldn't get a unit in Trump Tower back in the day. That,
We couldn't get it. I remember that. I
that's
remember that.
redlining.
Yep.
That's what the real
Yep.
estate
That is
agent.
so true.
There's nothing available for black people. Nothing. And then when you do have something available in inventory, black people normally charge much more than white people on average. And now, with the greatest transfers of wealth, think about this. When you get a divorce in the United States, especially if you're black, and especially when
Yes.
you depend on certain things in order to make money, why is it that when you get a divorce and you do child support, and let's say you don't catch up on your child support payments, the first thing they do is, what do? They take away your driver's license. The state or the feds or somebody takes away your
And your
driver's license
passport.
and your passport, and you get the threat of jail. And so what are they doing? They're disenfranchising the family
Yep.
because sometimes people lose their job. Sometimes people, can't make their payments, but they take your license away until you make up the payment. How do you make up payments when you don't have a mode of transportation? How does that occur? How does it occur? You're $5,000 in the
But
hole, $2,000 in the hole.
here, I would like to. I would like.
Say
I would
again?
like to say something about it.
Go ahead, please.
We were in Chile for a while, and I still, we used to live in Chile, right?
I remember that.
And do you know that in Chile, if you don't pay child support, reclusión nocturna, which means that you go in jail at nighttime, but during the day you work, and but you sleep in. So what they do, they allow you to work, but then you in what is called reclusión nocturna. So during nighttime,
Mhm.
your home is jail, but you still work, so you can actually make up for the child support. And I think it's more that system make more sense because if they strip you away from your driver license, you can get to work. Well, Chile don't do that. They don't actually. You go to reclusión nocturna. If you
You get convicted.
decline that options, then you can go for full time exactly. But in the meantime, you have that alternative going on. I say, well, you couldn't go out. They say no because after work I have to go back to prison. I'm like, what do you mean? Say, well, for child support. I'm like, wow, that is interesting. Yeah,
They have that in the States,
that
but
was just a
normally
parenthesis. Continue.
in the white neighborhoods they have that mainly, but not for
Oh,
black people, Hispanic people mostly.
oh,
It's called work
really?
release. It's called work release.
Wow,
They'll give you work release, and it's up to the judge and the county you're in
wow.
to decide whether they take your license. So a lot of white people, not saying all, not a racist, but I'm black and I know what happens in my community. And I'm telling you, they take your license away from you. They don't give you work release. So how do you take care of your family? The divorce rate in the United States right now is 54%.
Oh,
You're
you black?
frozen. Hell yeah, I'm black, bro. Yeah, I'm just a light
I
skinned
say,
black
are
guy.
you okay? Okay, okay. Okay, because look at me, I'm black, but so
White people ain't even white. White people pink. I
no,
stand next to white people. Sometimes I'm lighter than
I
some of them.
know
Exactly. So I don't even, care. But I'm black. I claim black
that's
and
crazy.
I live black. I think it's the lip. Yeah, I love being me. You know, but what happened? And this will bring some
I
light to the
wouldn't
other
change for
conversation.
anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Martin Luther
Okay,
King, Malcolm X fighting for freedom, one peacefully, one aggravatedly, both of them shooting for the same thing, basically. Equality and equanimity in the workplace, as well as denoting a sense of economic parity with all the rest of the cultures. Because it's a damn shame in the United States. Everybody in the world is called by their origin and their race, like Irish American, Italian American, Chinese American, Japanese American. But black people are called Black American without origin. That disenfranchisement with America.
that is so true. That is
So
so true because if you pay
African
attention, you
American,
have
African American is why I
is
like
Italian American, is you're right, Japanese American.
everybody's called what their cultural
No, no, no.
origins
That's
are.
I was just commenting on what you're saying. You're right. Yeah,
Yeah. And so black people had to be called first slaves, then second Negroes, and then later blacks, and then later, and all the time since then, they were called niggers too. But, and then now in the 20th century, and of course now in the 21st century, we're calling ourselves African Americans, and we don't know why. You even hear black people saying today, I'm not African. I don't have anything to do with Africa. And that's exactly what every culture in the world who hates you wants you to think and believe. They can continue to disenfranchise you and hurt you as a unit, as a group of people. They can continue to do that because you're saying it's okay because you don't belong anywhere. You just said it. I don't like African America, but if Africa, which I will get into, I love talking about Africa. And I've been there more times than most people have been in their backyards. But I'm going to say to you that
that is so true.
when this happens, what we do as black people is we disenfranchise ourselves. We hurt ourselves and we hurt each other. We will let a con artist take our money, take our time, take our things from us. That's white with blonde hair, blue eyed, or brown hair, or whatever. And we will implicitly trust this person or this group of people as black people. But a guy who's in earnest, working his ass off, trying to build something, can't get black
Wow.
people to support him to save their lives. And when a few black people, they do get to support them, a very far and few in between. But it's always a black person that screws each other over before white people. I rather deal with white people
Well,
because they
that is so true.
say again, except for Africans. Africans,
No, no, no. I agree
first
with
of
you. I
all,
agree with you 100%. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I'd rather deal with white people in business because nobody's looking at me. I heard a brother say the other day, he said, I can deal with hate. Hate, I don't mind hate. You can see hate coming, you can deal with hate. But envy, can't fuck with envy. That guy gonna stab you sooner or later. That person envious of you will
You
stab you.
can't.
You cannot fight against it. They'll come at you from any direction. I'd rather deal with
That is
somebody
so
who hates
true.
my guts than envy me. Fuck that. But so what happened when they got this Civil Rights Act? It was an act of desegregation. What happens if I take a bunch of salt and a bunch of pepper and I put it together and I shake it up? Then I go in, I start desegregating the very white stuff and then the lighter stuff, and then I leave all the dark here. But I keep all the white over here. That's exactly what they did when they desegregated. They start pulling out all of the lighter persuaded people out of the hood or the neighborhoods. That's why it's called the hood now, short for neighborhood, because it's no longer neighborhood, it's the hood. They started pulling out black people during integration, not integration, but desegregation. And they pulled out all the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the insurance owners, the business owners, the tailors, the best school teachers, and they just sprinkled them all over white America. It only came to about 12% of the entire population, and only 6 or 7% of that actually was integrated or desegregated into white America. And what they should have had is a plan of integration where the entirety of the communities will never move. Black people could have stayed exactly where they were, but the infrastructure of the community should have been upgraded. The dollars from Congress should have been flowing. The educational system should have been brought up to par. Instead of everybody saying, the bank's going to give me a loan now. During this era, civil rights era, the banks would give Black people loans so they would move out of the community and move into white America and spend all their money there and stay in hock up to their necks, more than they ever would have paid if they stayed in their own communities out in mainstream world. And back in the hood where no infrastructure was left, no teachers were living there, the police didn't live there anymore. No, they brought in entire battalions of police in the 60s and 70s. The largest police station in the whole country was in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago. And I remember seeing it from the projects being built back in the early 70s. It was being built, and it was the largest police station in the country. Why? It just came out of Vietnam, early 70s. There was turmoil in the streets, civil rights. They were killing. The first drive-by shooting I ever saw in my life was a Chicago policeman shooting at us walking down the street in their cars as they drove by. That was the first time I ever saw drive-by shooting. We would get killed every day. People from our neighborhood, Black people were being killed every day. It was like the apartheid or worse in South Africa. People don't know that. And they don't want to know that because nobody had to see that. Nobody drove past the hood, bro. No one drove past the hood. You know, you get on the Dan Ryan Expressway and you can just bypass the whole, go right to all the white neighborhoods and never see Black people as long as you live in Chicago. And then when you did see them, you saw the up and coming Black people downtown or in some of the other neighborhoods. The Chinese always stay to themselves. This is such an amazing community worldwide. Wherever they go, they build a community. First thing the Chinese do is build a community. And that's what Black people should be doing.
Unbelievable. But I've seen them everywhere.
Yeah, Chinese don't fuck around. They get into a place, they bring their culture, their language, they speak English as well. They bring their commerce, they bring their education system, they bring everything with them. And they homogenize their entire community and playing field so everybody can get a piece or benefit. And then, yeah, there's some Chinese people who are less fortunate and less educated. And, you know, just like in every culture, they're going to be at the bottom rungs of society, but that happens everywhere. But they're always about handing up to their community and not handing out. Black people, we get what we want from the community. We get what we want, and we say, fuck everybody else. This is what we do. And we've been cultured to do this. It's not Black people's fault that we fuck each other over. Remember, back in the times of slavery, you had field nigger and house nigger. The field nigger was out there working in the hot sun all day, beating it down and carrying on. You saw Django. Then you had a house nigga, you know, that stayed in the house and didn't do shit and try to, you know, live the American life and thinking they got it made. And they learned to hate each other. Remember, the first thing they did when they brought in a family of slaves to sell, they sent the dad to Georgia. They sent the mom to Mississippi. They sent the sister down to Georgia. They sent the kids over to Alabama. First thing they did was split up the family. No family, you have no support. That's the first thing. Second thing they did, you can't read, you can't write. You get caught reading and writing, we're going to hang you. Can't talk to white people, we'll talk to you. Or we'll hang you. Can't be out at night, or we'll hang you. You can't do this, you can't do that, or we'll hang you. And they did hang you, a lot of Black people. Fed them to the alligators. There's more stories about that. Then you have people like heroes like Harriet Tubman, you know, the Underground Railroad. They would ferry Black people up to the North where they had more favorable conditions, but it was just as many racists in the North as it was in the South back then. It just wasn't as legalized as it was in the South. But a whole lot of white folks and every culture in New York and Chicago and all the major cities in the North, DC, Maryland, all of these places profited on slavery. They just did it differently. They would capture the slave, make them think that they were going to take care of them, and then they get a whole group of them. Then they call in the Southern boys. They would come back and repatriate those people right back into slavery and get paid for them, get the bounty on them. That's how they made a living in the North. A lot of commerce happened. So this shit, but people think, well, oh, the Republican parties are racist and the
Wow.
Democratic Party are not. That's all bullshit because it was the Democrats doing it back then. But then their whole mantle and understanding of what that party meant to America changed. The people changed. The culture of the Democratic Party changed. And they started to become more compassionate toward the people and moderating and legislating on behalf of the people. While the Republicans went, fuck that. We want to make money. We've been helping the people for a long time. We want to make money. So they started looking after the interests of the railroad companies and the car manufacturers and the trolley makers. That's what they started. And since that day, it's been that way for the past at least 150 years. It's been 120 years. It's been that way since then, since the 1900s. And during the T-Dome scandal, a lot of people moved from the Democratic Party because most of your Klansmen back in that day were Democrats. Believe it or not. Now your Klansmen today are Republicans. Back then, they were Democrats. Wow. Exactly. So the roles reversed in each party, thanks to progressive anything. People don't like progressive. You hear somebody say, "Oh, that's socialist," and all this. They don't know what the hell socialist mean. Most people can tell you what it meant. But when Karl Marx did his study on democracy, he came up with socialism because it was a mix of communism, where the state would own as well as some people would own the elite. And that's the only part the Republican Party believe in now, is that the elite should own and the government runs everything else, but keep small government so they can keep the cash in their pockets. That's their whole business plan. If you look at since Jimmy Carter, no, forget Jimmy.
Wow.
Since Nixon, look at every presidency in the United States. Nixon, with Vietnam and the fiascos of Vietnam, he ran up the national debt. Who took it out? Who paid it off? Jimmy Carter. Who brought it down? Jimmy Carter, the Democrat. Then after Jimmy Carter made a balanced budget, almost a balanced budget, only like about maybe $36 billion in debt or something like that, which is nothing for the whole U.S. government. Then what happened? Reagan came in with the Iran-Contra scandal, with the Salvadoran War, which I participated in, all these different wars around the world, the Middle Eastern problems we had. He brought that back up into the almost $1 trillion, from almost nothing to $1 trillion. So the Republican president brought it up. Then what happens after Reagan? Who came in? It was Bill Clinton. Clinton comes in. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Clinton. And no, it was Bush, Reagan, Bush, and then Clinton. And then they just kept running it up for 16 years. The Republicans had a field day for 16 years. Well, 12 years, because Bush 1 only did one term. Or George Herbert Bush. And then what happens? All that money, Clinton comes in. What does Clinton do? Clinton is the only president in modern history, Bill Clinton, the guy who shook his finger and said, "I did not have sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky," who he did. He fucked her. Yeah, of course he did. And he got a blowjob. Quite a few of them too.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton is the only president in modern history that balanced the budget. We had no debt when he left the office. None. What happens after that? GW come in. George W. Bush. George W. George
really?
W. comes in, and he attacked the wrong country, Iraq. He spent trillions on wars all over the world, looking for bin Laden, never found him. 8 years later, we're in worse debt we've ever been in the United States. Period. And then a Democratic president come in, Barack Obama, and they clean up all that debt. And then Trump comes in, and he puts us in worse debt. Trump spent more money in 4 years of his presidency than 25% of all the presidents that's ever lived put together. Donald Trump spent $13 trillion just at home, and another $10 trillion on just COVID. I'm telling you, $24 trillion in debt. Donald Trump did. Don't take my word. Look it up. You can Google it. How much debt? More debt than any other president. The Republican Party.
I will look it up. All this. What I will do.
And then look up what's his name right now. Our president right now. I can see his face, and I know him. But I never see him on TV as much as I used to see Trump. So he don't always come to me. But I remember when he was a young senator and he was voting for um, Clarence Thomas to be on the Supreme Court. I was watching the Anita Hill debates. He pretty much orchestrated for for Clarence Thomas to be on the Supreme Court, which is the worst black person, I think, in the history of the United States, period. Clarence Thomas. He's an Uncle Thomas, not Tom. Tom. He's elegant about his ignorance. He's Uncle Thomas. But
Thomas.
yeah, Clarence Thomas. But Biden right now, he's a Democrat. And what is he doing? He's paying down the debt. He's balancing the budget. He's taking trillions of dollars every month off of our balance sheet. And the guy is killing it. But he gets no credit for it because he's old. Think about it. They say he's old, so he gets no credit. And people are dumb enough to believe that. This is one of the sharpest men that's ever. He's done more for the American people. And I'm going to tell you that insofar as policy and laws and helping than every president, I think, in the past century and a half, to include Barack Obama. And the only reason Barack Obama didn't do more than Biden, the only reason is because Mitch McConnell, the head of the Senate, and they were in the majority, said that we will never back anything Obama puts on the table. Nothing. And that's why Obama couldn't get anything passed. Mitch McConnell, he couldn't get those judges onto the bench. Nothing. Mitch McConnell wouldn't bring it up for a vote. That's why right now the Supreme Court is packed with Republican sycophants. That's what actually happened. And it happened several times during Republican administrations. Really interesting. I can go on and on, but the history lesson is now we're here today. I think blacks should be paid. I think African Americans, forgive me, should be paid reparations. And there's a brilliant case for it. Just to homogenize or make an even playing field of opportunity in America. Because lest we take that American dream shit seriously, that's the only way black people can ever see it make sense. Because off the backs of black people, the United States was built and they didn't have to pay shit for it. They paid each other. They brought the ships over. One time they made a payment for the slave. After that, they traded slaves like commodities. Remember, that slave trade was more productive, more profitable than all of the industry in the United States put together during its heyday. Where did one penny of that go to black people as a culture? One penny. Where does that generational wealth find itself even today? You know, you have people, you go down, especially in the South and in New York, you see these huge estates and all. Most of that was built off the back of free labor. So, you know, I can talk literally for hours, but when that dumbass congressman stand up on stage and talks about the Jim Crow was much better off and all this whole kind of shit, I mean, he needs to get his head out of his ass. You know, just because he grew up a golly gee nigga doesn't mean that everybody else thinks like him. He wants to be white so bad. He treats black people. Yeah, he treats black people bad to show white people just how good he is to white people. That good old house nigga. That's what I think of him. And it's a shame he would say such an egregious thing. Terrible, terrible thing. I love my politics. I love knowing my history.
Let's see if we can actually share this guy. That's the guy, right?
Yeah, that ignorant buffoon.
Okay, let's see if I can actually.
I mean, he play what he wrote. I need to get this program because I like this. We can pull it up and talk about it. I'm going to ask you to give me
We are making history.
I got hair on my nose.
Really taking on this Herculean task of getting multiple countries to come together.
There's this opportunity, this time that is now for us to be the rulers of our own destiny.
Affection by great opportunities.
It's a good time for us to be building this relationship.
A present bank that will provide the last key that you need to unlock prosperity.
That's Dubai.
One of Donald Trump's vice presidential contenders, Congressman Byron Donalds, he made some comments that has a lot of you talking and a lot of Democrats fired up. I'm going to speak with him live in just a couple of minutes. But here are the original remarks. They were made as a part of a pitch to Black voters in Philadelphia. And I want you to hear it in its full context. Listen.
I grew up with my mom. My dad and my mom, things didn't work out. As an adult, I look at my father and I say, bro, I don't know what happened, but you my father and I love you. Wow. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. Wow. But I'm gonna tell you this, growing up, the one thing I knew I wanted to do, and this is not about my father, this is about what I wanted to do, is I wanted to be a father to my son. Wow. And so one of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of Black families with younger Black men and Black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a Black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. During Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, because Black people always have been conservative minded, but more Black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America
he just
the
skips
last
over and
6 years,
glosses over
this is
all
my
the
contemporaries
details.
as well as his contemporaries. You're starting to see more
I don't know. I wasn't
Black
there.
people be married in homes, raising kids. And
That's
when you
untrue.
home with your wife raising your
Untrue what he's
kids,
saying.
and then you look at the world,
Untrue.
you're saying, now wait a minute, time out.
Yep.
This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids? It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth. Not just having a job, generational wealth.
Now, we should note that many Democrats who jumped on Donald's today claimed that he said that Blacks were, quote, better off. As you heard there, he didn't use those exact words in the clip, but the congressman joins me now to talk about that. Congressman, thank you for being here. I want to just focus on really the substance of what you were saying or trying to say in that clip. What did you mean by Black families were more together during Jim Crow?
Frankly, what that is about the empirical fact that before the Great Society, before Lyndon Johnson's policies, there was more Black families united. The marriage rate in Black America was significantly higher before the Great Society. The period of time that coincides with that, obviously, is Jim Crow era. And then after the Great Society, the marriage rate in the Black community plummeted significantly. The Great Society is a part of that reason, not completely, but it's definitely a part of that. And what you're seeing right now in America is a reformation of Black families in America. That's a good thing, not only for the Black community and for Black families, but it's also a good thing for the country.
So what was the point?
Yeah, you can comment on it. Yeah, here's the comment I want to make. He's a lie. He's bald-faced lie. That's called a DC two-step. He's answering half of the question out of context. So you can think he goes along with you when he really doesn't have a position. He's trying to engender a population of people for voting for him and engender this line of bullshit to them. Here's what he's doing. Black people, yeah, they were together during Jim Crow. Absolutely they were, but they weren't better off. He's insinuating without saying they're better off, that it was better when you had families that were together. But they couldn't get a loaf of bread at the store. They couldn't get a loan to buy a car or a house. They couldn't get a good job. They couldn't participate in white America. They couldn't do anything. So it wasn't better off. White people had their families together.
But I have a question.
Sure.
Were they together because of their circumstances in which they have to stick together in order to try to make, as they were not accepted, in any other ethnic group? That could be, because
they were forced
when
to be together.
When there is contempt,
Yes,
exactly.
Right. That's a great point that you're making. They were brought together as an act of confluence, where all things came together to push the community together and make the community more homogenized, make it more of a support for Black people than it was a detriment to Black people, because they weren't welcomed anywhere else. Nobody welcomed but the few token brothers throughout the country. And that was it. Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, who wasn't even from the U.S., came even from the Virgin Islands, if I remember correctly. And then you got, Martin Luther King.
Was,
yeah. And then you got, well, I was just going to say, he's a liar because he knows stupid black people and stupid white people who don't know their history is going to listen to those sound bites and say, yeah, they were much better off. All black people had ties and coats and jackets, and they respected their mamas and all that. So did white people. White people got just as high of a divorce rate than black people, just as bad of neighborhoods as black people now. I mean, he's trying to make it seem like it was a black thing that was better. But what he doesn't mention, which no one wants, not even this person, this lady who's, what is her name? Even though I like her though, even she didn't mention the fact that Jim Crow was a symbol of what? Racism, hatred, vehement loathing of black people. So for somebody to associate those times, let's say he never mentioned Jim Crow, but say they were better off before today in America, and let's say he just said that, he would still be just as big of a buffoon to be a U.S. congressman and not know his own damn history, to not be able to defend the fact that black people were downtrodden as a result of white people in legislation throughout the history of the country that passed laws to keep black people and communities down. And what did they do in the 60s? CIA and a lot of organizations right now are revealing documents. You got that 50-year time limit on it. That's showing that most of those riots were started, those burning down of Watts in Chicago was started by white people. They were started by the white police, the white infiltrators to the call. It's a part of public dialogue right now, but nobody's talking about it because people are too damn lazy to go back and study their history and figure out how they fit in. How the hell are you going to know where you're going if you don't have no idea where you came from? How? And this is our biggest problem in the black culture. Once we know where we fucking come from and where that'll put us exactly where we are. And then from there, we can earn our way forward. We can be respected forward. But we've never had any transformative respect in our culture. You got all these golly G niggas out there who make money and they're rich and they're these things and they've been able to be those guys and they watch black people around them suffering all the time and they care about what kind of new horse they're going to buy, or what new Mercedes-Benz they're going to buy, or what new house they're going to buy. But they're not trying to reach back and do something. And this is a shame. I'm not putting my community down because there's a whole lot of black people out there that are good people doing great things, but they don't make the impact as a buffoon like this one makes. They just don't make the impact. And that's the problem. He has a voice. He has a platform of people who already hate black people and tolerate him. So whatever he says, congruent to what they're thinking, whatever he says, they're going to buy into it. And they get money. And they're going to put the force of the police, they're going to put the force of the government, they're going to put the force of the community behind that type of atrocity that will be committed upon black people because he opens his mouth and says something stupid like this. This is why, what we need in America, though, think about why it's so easy to have MAGA and the Democrats and everybody fighting each other. You want to know why it's so easy? Don't take my word for it.
Why?
Research this too. I hope the audience researches as well. Over the past 3 or 4 decades. Yeah, over the past 3 or 4 decades, every Republican administration has been doing 2 things, really 3. One, of course, spending money like there's no limit. That's the first thing. Second thing they've been doing is they've been packing the courts with judges. Whenever they got a Republican administration, they pack the courts. And the third thing they've been doing is they've been dumbing down our education system. Look at the last person they put up as education secretary was Betsy DeVos. This lady couldn't spell education. Let's known be in charge of the education system in the United States. What did she immediately go and do? Slashed everything. She slashed from every budget in America when it came to school. And she's tried to turn over public schools to private hands so they can make money on it. Now, What have they been removing? Every Republican administration, don't take my word for it. I want you to call me a liar and go research this. Every Republican administration takes something out of the curriculum across the country. They take out humanities, they take out civics, home economics, history, they take out political science. They take out a lot of these high school and grade school level courses that was traditional when I was growing up. Every guy in our class knew how to sew. We didn't sew well, but we could sew some clothes. We could cook a meal.
Yeah, exactly. We get by. Exactly. That I agree.
But they took all that out of the curriculum. Every bit of that humanities, all that music gone in most schools in America, unless they're white and wealthy schools. They don't have it. They don't even have new textbooks. Why? Because the dumber the population was 20, 30 years ago, doesn't mean they didn't make it through high school and went to college, became a doctor. They became a lawyer. They became a bondsman or a trader. They became, a factory worker where they retired now. That's not the point. Because you got doctors and lawyers and very learned and intelligent people on the right side and the left sides of the aisle. They're not because they're dumb. It's because they're stupid. By taking those lessons out of school and having no experience in humanities, having no experience in knowing how the U.S. government works. Well, how is a bill made? What does legislation mean? What are the three branches of government? You can't ask any 10 people on the street in the United States, and 9 of them, or maybe even 8 of them, will not know the fucking answer. Will not know. They don't know how legislation gets passed. They don't know what the committees are for. They don't know how the executive branch versus the judicial branch versus the legislative branch operates in concert with one another, and why there are 3 different branches. They don't know. So all they're waiting on is some talking head to come along and go, I hate black people. And they go, yeah, me too. Because why do I hate black people? Because I don't really know how government works. I don't know how these issues work. I don't know shit. Wow. So I'm going to go with what this guy says. He looks like me. He's white. He's mad. I'm white. I'm mad. So I'm going to go with this guy. Wow. This is what's happening.
And how did he finish his
I'm sorry?
In his, yeah. I wonder what did he say after this? Did he say some more nonsense?
Who?
Byron Donald. Sorry.
You know what? I'm disgusted with him.
Let's see.
He's trying to backpedal, is what he's trying to do. He's just backpedaling going on.
Let's see what other nonsense is saying. Let's see.
No.
Kind of tying together the Black family and Jim Crow specifically. I mean, Jim Crow, as you know, was a period of racial segregation, of racial terror. Why would you make that connection?
All I was doing was referring to the time periods when you talk about the historical timelines in America and coinciding with Black families and what the marriage rate in Black families are. The overarching point is obviously talking about what polling shows today, that about 20-25% of the Black vote, depending on what poll you're looking at, is leaning towards supporting Republicans and supporting President Trump.
That's a lie.
The core to that is that when you're in a family unit, husband and wife, living together, working together, thriving together, you're raising your kids, your thought process is now talking about building generational wealth. What am I leaving to my children? What kind of communities do I want my children to come up in? What are the educational opportunities? What's going on with the economy? How does, and then to a broader level, how does foreign policy and all these other public policy issues flow into that? And so when you compare the terrible agenda of Joe Biden and what that's done to families in America, coinciding with the fact that you are seeing a reformation of Black families in America today, which is an absolutely wonderful thing and needs to continue. My view is it also coincides with a more conservative leaning and a more conservative mindset politically in those families.
Yeah, that's all BS. It's his backpedaling and trying to claim that 25% of Black people are going to Trump. Trump stood on camera and said about Mexicans. Let's just say the Mexicans. Those motherfuckers come over here and they rape our people. Get those motherfuckers out of here. Those are his exact words. If he feel like that about Mexicans, Black people know they ain't shit in his eyes. Black people should know they ain't shit in his eye. Because we know how he is. They wouldn't even let us in his building. We know how he is.
But
yeah.
But what talk about it. We have the upcoming election in November,
Yeah.
and then and we're also aware of his conviction. So do you think we're
Mhm.
gonna have the first convicted, the first felon president in the United States? And that
Yes.
my other question was, I mean, let's say hypothetically speaking, let's say Trump were to win the elections, how would he be able to govern if he's like on house arrest or in prison? Would he go to the vice president? Those are hypothetical questions. I was just wondering about those things. How things would turn out to be,
First, as a pun, I say this, but it could be an actual possibility. Depends upon who backs the laws during this time. But I'm sure if Trump were to win, which is extremely hypothetical, I'm sure he would have White House counsel and his Justice Department to write a memo saying no presidents can spend time in jail. So once that become a known custom of the Justice Department as well as the White House counsel, once they are in agreement with that, then they'll say, well, no president can spend time in jail. We can't have our president been in jail and golly gee whiz and all that bullshit. That's what they'll do.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sidestep that if he became president. But the more important part of that is, will he win? No. And the reason why is our political system today has become pretty much a spectacle. It's a sideshow. This lady we just watched, this pretty black lady, intelligent, obviously, and she did bring up the fact that it was Jim Crow era. She made that comparison because I hadn't seen that interview, so fully. And I apologize for saying she didn't even bring it up, but I'm glad she did. But this interview has to do something for CNN. And what people don't get is back in the 60s and 70s, the news was not a profitable thing. It was what channels put on to keep people informed, to keep them watching the TV so they can sell them products and services. That's what the news was. And over time, it became profitable to be a news agency or to be a wire like the AP Wire or Bloomberg's Wire. It's very profitable news. Information is power. When they converted into a for-profit platform in news agencies and magazines and everything around the world, everything shifted. They had to start being more sensational and even oftentimes fantastical in some of their reporting to keep you, the dumb listener. We didn't get phonics. We didn't get humanities. We didn't get political science or civics. We didn't get that because they took it out of the curriculum. So we're dumb about this stuff. You get it? So over time, news agencies, especially CNN, Fox, ABC, CBS, and NBC, MSNBC, Reuters, and quite a few others out there. Not necessarily NPR, but NPR is leaning a lot as well. But they have to do something now that they didn't ever have to do before, and it's now a part of the political and newsworthy custom, and that is they have to sell tickets to the show. They're gonna hype the hell out of Donald Trump. They're gonna list every kind of nasty poll coming from some right-wing group who don't even matter, and they're gonna say, "Well, we just got these poll in saying that Donald Trump is ahead at 80%. They say that so it can piss you off and piss off their own constituency so everybody can dig in their pockets and give dollars and say to these candidates and keep watching their channel and buying their products. That's why they do it. It isn't because Donald Trump has a chance. Who's going to say, let a wannabe dictator, a wannabe mob boss come in and be president? Who's going to say that? But no one else but who? White America.
But I have a question. Why?
Yeah.
I mean, apparently, it seems like even convicted, it seems like the U.S. Constitution doesn't contemplate the fact that a felon cannot present himself as president. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. It's not even in the Constitution anywhere. Matter of fact, a convicted felon in jail down in Florida right now can't vote, but he can run for president.
That's the point I was trying to say. There's something wrong with that because here's the thing. I mean, I've realized that, throughout my years of traveling, and I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in Chile. where in Chile, not only citizen can vote, but only or as well as PR, permanent resident, can actually vote in Chile. Because as far as the Chilean look at it, because like PR, also the fact that they are integrated society, live there, they have a voice too, and also felon, because they were like, well, felon has a voice too, so they don't discriminate. I was like, that's quite interesting. So
But
going
they have
back,
the luxury for that. They have the luxury. They
but
have the luxury.
going through your, I mean, based on what you said earlier, I mean, historically wise, that
The
black
political model.
people were considered 3/5 of a person, right?
Yes.
And
at
the
the voting booth.
majority of people incarcerated were black, right?
Yes.
So I wonder if that law was carved to limit black people from voting or from being able to access into politics, into Congress, into Senate. I just wonder if there's a correlation with that. Not sure.
Well, I'll make it sure. I'll help you make it sure. How's this?
Okay.
That's called that's voters disenfranchisement. So the disenfranchisement of voters, what they've been doing, basically denying for whatever reason black people to have a full vote. And matter of fact, this last election when Trump and Biden were, they had like one voting booth in the whole black neighborhood, and they had 25 voting booths next door in the next county that was white. So black people had to show up at 4 o'clock in the morning so they can cast their vote by noon, standing in line. All that. They even came up with laws that said you couldn't give people online water who've been sitting out there 15, 16 hours waiting to vote. When white people go to their voting booth, there's 2 people in front of them. They go in, boom, boom, boom. 5 minutes, they're out and they're in the grocery store shopping. I voted today. They get their little pins. I voted today. Black people sit 10, 12, 14 hours online. They made laws. This is called gerrymandering, a form of gerrymandering, because gerrymandering is also redistricting the voting population to tailor the politician. So Republicans like to say, well, this whole area used to be all Republican. Now part of it is Democrat. So I'm just going to move my voting block over here a little bit so it can be all Republican. And that's who I'll represent. And that's what gerrymandering, they do a lot of that in the Republican Party. That's their main shtick. And then here's the biggest one. This is about voter disenfranchisement. You're disenfranchising voters from their right to vote and for their vote to count. The Electoral College was created.
That's my next question.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there, brother, because this is the best. This is the biggest fucking joke on America in the history of the country. Bush, the Electoral College. There's not one since Reagan. There's not been one Republican to get the majority of the vote, other than George Herbert Walker, which he only served 1 term. But since Reagan, no. Every single Republican that's taken off has taken off because of the electoral votes and have lost the popular. Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes and lost the election.
I know in any other country, she would have won.
Brother, in any other country, they would have burned down the country over that. Okay?
Exactly.
But we've been so conditioned because we don't know how shit works. You say the Electoral College to somebody in America, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Electoral College? You mean they got to go to school to become president? What are you saying? What are you talking about? People don't know that it's a voting system that was set up by slave owners because they weren't popular after the Civil War. And there were not a lot of slave states didn't have enough legislators to compete with all the ones in the North that had been flourishing and going out west and in the Midwest and in the Northern West. They didn't have much to compete with that. So they came up with the Electoral College. So each area got so many electoral votes based on population, based on representation, based on whatever, a lot of different economics, the whole 9 yards. And then they said, and they kept it even after the South got strong. They kept it in place. So the South wouldn't be disenfranchised themselves from the votes and always it'll just be the Democrats winning. That's what would happen if they didn't have the Electoral College. But remember, Democrats were Republicans back then, Republicans were Democrats. So it benefited in both parties over time. Now, what happens today? Electoral College should show up. There's a humongous and condensed as well as sparsely populated areas throughout the country that are both Republican and Democrat across the board. And some communities are more Republican than others, and some are more Democratic than others. There's a very weighty understanding of the American population that didn't exist 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So what happens now? They take the same college, electoral college, and they say, well, electoral college says that this area got 25 votes, and it's a give all type, winner take all kind of thing. So they may be in the black communities 2 electoral votes, but all the rural counties that got like 30 people in each county or 2,000 people in each county, but you got 1 million people over here, they may get 4 electoral votes, but all of the votes that's tallied throughout this rest of the state, it's all green and all red states, that they get more electoral college votes because of the land that they occupy as well. So what happens? Your 4 votes, or let's say it's 14 votes, and the Republicans got 20 votes because of the areas they cover. Well, when the president is whoever has the majority gets all of the votes. So that 14 votes plus they get the Democrats 10 votes, and they give it to Trump, or they give it to whoever the Republican Party head or presidential nominee is. And that's the problem with electoral voting, because they know all they have to do is keep neighborhoods white, keep the farms white, keep everybody out in the farms hating black people, hating Republicans, hating everything to do with progression, Social Security, hating. So how do you hate Social Security? This is a form of socialism. Of course it is. You pay good money over many decades of your life into Social Security. How's that an entitlement? It's not an entitlement. That's your fucking money. That's your money. The fuck? But you got these stupid people out there believing that it's an entitlement. And it's not an entitlement. It's their money. But people out there, they're just as dumb as rocks. They don't know how shit work. Our education system has been dumbed down when they were kids. And these are doctors and lawyers and traders. They don't know shit about civics. A damn thing about how the government works. They don't know how a backroom deal operates. All they care about is they're making more money as a doctor or attorney, and the tax laws are favorable to them. So they're going to stick with the Republicans. That's all they know. Now their daughter's pregnant right now by some guy who raped her.
Wow.
You can't get an abortion. Now they wonder, like, wait, what did I vote for here? What's happening to me? Donald Trump went on television and said, I'm happy I killed Roe versus Wade. The law of the land, the precedent-setting law was just struck down, or gutted, I would say. Not struck down, but gutted by the Supreme Court. These same people that voted in all these idiots just did that. So many women are dying today because they don't have any kind of protection or help or support in their own. They could be a doctor can be put in jail for giving an abortion, even to a woman who was raped and brutally put in a coma, and she's pregnant in a coma with a rapist baby, and they can't get rid of the baby. And or they say the baby's deformed. It's gonna not live 10 minutes after it's born. She's still, or it dies inside of her. She cannot have an abortion. The baby, you have a stillborn baby, you have to go to term in some of these states. Even if the baby's dead inside of the mom. That's just how stupid people are. It has nothing to do with morality. I don't think God gives a shit about that. I think they make God, they dumb down God too. Like, God wouldn't want this. How the hell you know? This is the same God that hung all the stars and named them 1 billion years ago. Same God that knows every blade of grass on the planet and every jungle and every animals and every human thought that they had, that they have, and they will ever have. He already knows this. If this is the same God we're talking about, who the hell are you to tell me what he's thinking and doing? Who?
That's true.
Who are you to tell me that God, you don't know. God make these circumstances, see how we as people react, how we respond to them. You could be a good Christian, but you go out and you're a prostitute at night, or you're gay, or you're uneducated, or you're a criminal. Every mafioso movie or every mob guy you ever meet, first thing he does is, thank you, God, Lord, and Espiritu Santo. The first thing he do is pray up to God. He just put 10 people in drum barrels that day. What I'm trying to tell you is, for us, I think preachers and ministers and all that, I think that's great, and people want to do that and follow that. I'm a good Christian, but I just don't follow what everybody else believes. I read a little bit more and deal with a little bit more than that. Not that I don't believe in God, because I do, but he doesn't serve me. I don't pray for God every day. Everybody say, pray to God every day. Pray to God, pray to God. I don't do that shit. I don't do that. God knows what I want. I already told him once. I leave it alone. I let God, I have faith. I move forward and let God handle it. And if it don't happen, he didn't want it for me. If it does happen, I keep moving forward. You've seen me reinvent myself many times over the years. I've had to do it.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, bro. You know, we've known each other, more than 20 years.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we had to reinvent ourselves. We have to.
I'm gonna turn on the air. Give me 1 second.
I've been active on. Yeah.
But getting back to the very point we started this whole debate over, this whole call. I love talking to you. You have no idea. I miss our conversation. We used to do this shit all the time. I love it. But there's a certain kind of brother in the United States. He's weak. He always will be weak. And instead of being strong or trying to learn to be strong, what does he do? He decides he's going to hurt other black people to get ahead. That's what he decides. Yeah. And they talk some of the craziest nonsense. Well,
talking about it, I had that's funny. I was talking to someone one time, and then he was like, "Well, you're just talking about in general." He said, "Well, what are you gonna do? Invest daddy's money?" And that was quite the interesting comment because I said, "Okay, what is wrong with that? Having generational wealth? I mean, if your dad is okay, if you're born in a privileged family, what's wrong with that?" And there's so many resentment because you say, "Well, I mean, you're 50, I'm younger than you." That's okay, that's fine. I'm glad you're doing okay. But what you are doing right now, that's what my forefather did in the past. So I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
He thinks his mindset is that you, because you're well off, because you're benefiting from your family and what you've been able to accumulate, and because you're not per se from the US, you are from Africa. And being from Africa, the continent, and and I don't want to go into all your personal stuff online, but I've been to your home in Africa, so I've been to with you, as a matter of fact, a few times.
Exactly.
So, so we've been all over.
As a matter of fact, today I was going over the pictures. I was like, wow, because you get those reminder because I believe you get because I've been using iPhone for a long time, so iPhone keep on reminding you or sharing memories that this year you were in Singapore or in Hong Kong, and I realized that the last time, I think in June or maybe in 2015 June, we were in the Congo.
I know we were in the Congo. We were all over. We were in South Africa. We were everywhere. Yeah, I remember that. It's good. Hey, you look, bro.
Exactly. So when I see that,
I mean, listen to it. Listen to what we're saying. We're trying, I'm not trying to put the guy down that got money and family. That I'm not trying to do. Because before my mother and father divorced, my family had money. I mean, my father, had money and we lived well. We had a 16-room home, literally. And when they got divorced, we moved to the project pretty much. Yes. So I didn't grow up like poor. I grew up broke because when my father divorced and my mother and father divorced, I was about 11 and we went from literally riches to rags, literally from riches to rags. I mean, my mother had a tough time. She was given child support, listen to this, and no alimony of $120 a month for 6 kids. Our mortgage that she inherited from the divorce was $165 a month. Okay. So as a kid, we went from that big ass, beautiful house, land, everything to the projects. Pretty much with my grandmother. Every time we got kicked out, or we went wherever my mom would have a boyfriend and he'd take 6 kids in, and it was amazing. She was a beautiful woman, so she was able to do that back in the day. And they took us in too. They didn't like us most of the time. And then some of the time they did. So we learned what broke was being all about. I don't envy the person like that guy is trying to envy you of having wealth and family and support. That's not my point today. My point is that more people should have that.
And I was surprised actually when you mentioned that. Go ahead.
No,
exactly.
I'm good. Go
and
ahead.
especially I think as as black people, we should be proud. As black people, I think we should be proud of it. And I was like, I mean, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one in because I know you've met. Yeah, you had the opportunity to meet the people I grew up with, and it's not like I'm the exception to the rule. There are plenty of us
Everybody's
in
going
that
like
situation.
that. Exactly.
Remember,
Exactly.
yeah, you met the Yav brothers, you met the Dumas, you met
Yeah.
all those people. So
Powerful
and so
people.
people have a misconception of things back home in general.
Envy.
They think
Envy.
they think uh, what- they think I came to the United States to find a better life. I said no, I went to the United States because my dad decided to send me to school there because to him, as far as he was concerned, was the best education. And my dad moved from. I mean, my dad. I mean, it's a long story, but it's from Haiti to Africa. But you know the rest. You know,
Yeah, I know the
yeah. So
story.
then went to exactly to the story. So when I look at it, I was like, I said, wow, you know. And then I had an incident with a guy that said that I think because I have money, he has to kiss my ass or this. And I'm like, so well, I was even shocked to hear that from this dude because it stemmed from a misunderstanding because we couldn't because I have a very busy life, so multiple I have to postpone some of the activity we had, and the meeting we had was just to go drink. So it was not. So it's not like we had some business meeting, and I've realized
Right.
that I'm like I said, wow. Sometimes you need to stick with people who share the same mind frame and mindset as you because there's just a misunderstanding. And as long, I mean, you try to make them reason, they just won't get it. So I was in his live the other day. He kept on muting me and say, well, you're gonna wait when I'm ready. I'm like, so it felt good to be able to mute me. Like, yeah, I did that to strictly travel because that's my moniker on
Dependent.
YouTube.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I was like, this is very sad because I mean, I'm the guy he needs to know, you know. And then, as far as I'm concerned, he was. I mean, me meeting him was an act of humility, I would say, because I was like, let me meet this guy that because I like to meet people.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter the background where they come from. So to me, just I just like to meet people, and then sometimes I realized that just can do that because, like I said, that's the nigga mentality.
I
And I
know
was so
that
sad to
straight
see
up.
that.
Yeah.
I was so sad to see that, bro. I was like, wow. And I've been cut off from this mentality for the past 20 years because I've been doing my
Mhm.
thing, traveling overseas, dealing with
Yeah.
people, and I've been to places where I'm the only black guy, like in Chile. There
Speaking
was
other
only black guy.
languages,
So
understanding other cultures.
yeah,
You've
just
been doing
reminiscing on
all that.
that, I was like, it's very unfortunate that you see this guy just like, and now it's just like, and another guy say, well, you guys need to. I say, well, a guy said that. I'm like, I said, well, maybe you should talk to him. I said, well, honestly, after that incident, I don't have anything to add because we just don't see things eye to eyes. I mean, it just you can look
Mhm.
at things from a totally different
Perspective.
outlook because perspective exactly. But I was trying to understand his mind frame, and the guy was
Well,
like,
I can
well,
tell you right
is
now
it
what
guys?
I've experienced. I know what you're
Go
going
ahead,
through.
I'm
See,
listening.
you have something else. See, you come from money. Number one, you look like you come from money. You act like you come from money, not because you're a snob, but because you just don't give a shit about a lot of stuff that a lot of people care about. Yeah, most people care about how I'm gonna pay my light bill. I'm gonna do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. I don't want to do that. I can't afford this. You don't look at that. You're like, I need to go to California. You get up, you go to California. I need to find me something new to do. You get up and you find something new to do. But see, that culture and that understanding of self came from how you were brought up, your education, as well as the people who support you in your life. Most black families outside of their own immediate family don't support one another. And that's not even true for white people. I mean, not even untrue for white people. The same thing. Most cultures today, because it's a very selfish world we're in, they don't give a shit about anybody outside of their immediate family for the most part. And a few people who do make some pretty good headway. But I can say this to you, and this is the reality part, I guess, is that the guy feels that way about you. It's called an overt inferiority complex. He feels less than you. So he has to be antagonistic and, more importantly, almost even to the point of narcissistic when he responds to you, because it's the only thing that gives him his narcissistic, like a heroin shot, his narcissistic supply is to speak down on you, to be an elitist, to take a position in your life he's thinking he's taken that he believes that you already have in his life. He believes by you having the education, you're having the support, the money, the family, and all of those things that he otherwise did not have. And even if he did have it, even if he did have all that, he had it on a much lesser level than you. And remember about the Black diaspora, not the African-American diaspora, but remember the Black diaspora is all about looking at the other nigga and seeing what he got and hating him for it. The house nigga, field nigga. That's what it's all about. And so when you come across people like that, this is a way to respond to narcissists. And I teach this at Norm Therapy, the company that I now own and have founded. But at Norm Therapy, we teach the way you handle a narcissist is if they say, well, you said and da 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 da, and this you did and that and the other, you don't respond to them by saying, I didn't say that. And that's not true what you're saying. That's not how you respond to them. How you respond to them is you say, please tell me, what did I say? Now they have to own up to their own remarks to talk to you.
Good point.
You take the power away from them. You do. You know me. I'm a straight up nigga sometimes too. I like arguing and fighting with motherfuckers. You know me. But when you're being intelligent about anything or you're defending anything, chances are that you should use certain tactics when you're using when you're dealing with narcissistic or sociopathic people, because there's a sociopathic quality to being underserved. If you've been conditioned to not expect much out of life and to be continually underserved that little something you do get throughout the entirety chronic portions of your life, then you're not going to have any appreciation for more. You're not going to understand not only more, but you're not going to understand people who have more. That's why most people who get $1 million who never had $1 million, they lose $1 million because they don't understand more. So that sociopathic and even narcissistic, extreme or malignant narcissistic behavior that happens between the family is generational. And some people, let's say people, the way I grew up, first with money, then without money, with family, and then without that, the way I grew up, some people expect me to be a total failure and a total weak guy and never been in special forces and all that. They don't expect any of that out of me. But what saved me was that I got a lot of beatings when I was a kid. And that taught me, because everybody beat their kids back then. It wasn't abuse back then. It was just you getting your ass whooped because you did something wrong. But as you look back on it, because mine was kind of chronic. My father kind of hated my guts back then. And now, believe it or not, my father's one of my best friends in the world. It's crazy, right? Anyway, what actually happened was I realized that everybody takes a beating. They just do. In one form or the other, you're going to take an ass whooping sooner or later. And so when I got in the military, I had a place to give off all that frustration. So joining special forces, you know, I'm one of these black guys, you know, whether I look light skinned or not, I'm one of these black guys who, when I went through special forces scuba school in 1980, because I'm old for the audience to know, when I went to special forces scuba school back in 1980, I was the first black special forces scuba diver in all of special forces since 1966. Now, there was a few guys from the yes. I mean, that hard hat thing they do with the Navy and Cuba Gooding Jr. and that stuff, that was my story. But I was a special forces scuba diver. I was the only black guy on any special forces team during that time. Now, there have been a few black guys that make it during the Vietnam era.
How was it?
How was what?
How was life back then?
Oh, bro. First of all, I was young. I was in my late teens. I was 18 years old, going on 19 when I joined Special Forces. When I finally graduated from Special Forces schools, I was turning 19 years old. So I still hadn't, you know, I was just old enough to drink on a military base. 18, I think, was the law back then, but 21 in some other places. But I was already on missions in different countries. I was on a special forces team. I was scuba. And then when I decided, they asked me what language I wanted to speak. I said Spanish because I like Spanish women. I said I want to learn Spanish. So they sent me to the Defense Language Institute, and they sent me to the Defense Language Institute. But before I went to the Defense Language Institute, one of the people asked me, "Well, you might as well go to Ranger School too." So I went to Ranger School. I became a Ranger, U.S. Army Ranger, as well. And then on and on and on, my whole career, it was like that. So by the time back then, I mean, your biggest thing you wanted to do back then, when I went to the Defense Language Institute, this is, let's say, there were maybe 2,000 guys and 30,000 women at the Defense Language Institute. So I had a ball. I had a ball there. Learned Spanish. Then I had to go down to Central South America for 5 years. But I had a ball, a wonderful time. So everything to the young guys about dating and partying and having fun, toga parties and no underwear parties. It was fucking crazy. And these are old school. Remember, this is the early 80s, late 70s. So these guys that, were my mentors in Special Forces, some of them been shot 16 times, and they lived. Whoa. And still in Special Forces. Some of them, they used to have these pictures. I'm not even kidding you. I'm not kidding. I was one of my members that was in my class, but he was in a special kind of class because he was a colonel at the time. His name was Roger Donlin. He was a Special Forces captain in Vietnam. Now he's a colonel sitting next to me in class at language school. And he said, hey, one day he said to me, hey, he used to call me Gibby. Hey, Gibby, Michael Gibson. He said, Gibby. I said, yes, sir. What is that? He said, take a look. He brought out this folding cellophane, like a wallet thing with just pictures in it, accordion thing. And it was pictures of him collecting literal, and he's dead now. God rest his soul. This is an American hero. But they did this. They collected ears. When they killed somebody, they took your ear and they put it on a string. And they hold it up. I mean, oh, yeah. He had those. He had truckloads of dead bodies and you name it. All of anything you could think of that was combative or combat or atrocity. Special Forces did some crazy things. But then he showed me pictures of what happened to guys in Special Forces who were killed and why they did those. He sat me down and he educated me. He said, you're in the best possible unit in the world, but it's the most dangerous, what you're about to do. And he showed me all these pictures and telling me all these stories. It was amazing. And then I left Defense Language Institute. I had finished Ranger School, went to Defense Language Institute, and then all of a sudden I'm on my way down to Central America. And my first mission was in Honduras. And you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to see why I don't see the camera.
Yeah, it was in Honduras. I think we were running out of memory, but it was in Honduras, and we were the first American team on the ground in a place called Palmarola. Before it was even Palmarola, it was called something else. And then we were in the first team that was in San Pedro Sula, Tegucigalpa, Choluteca, all over Honduras. We worked with the Honduran government, and I can tell you stories, but I really can't because we're online. I
can imagine. That would be.
And then, of course, El Salvador. I spent a couple tours in El Salvador, and life was real. Drug and addiction operations in other places. It was crazy. All that crap you see on TV, did it all. Been there, done that. I own that T-shirt printing company, and a lot of guys in Special Forces did the same thing. I mean, it was normal for us to do the things that we did. Anyway, I'm gonna have to get some rest today, bro.
Well, it was nice talking to you. So let's catch next time, and then I will keep you posted offline, and then I will let you know
about that other thing.
I go to the next spot, and So okay, as I say, Michael Gibson, always been a pleasure. So let's we'll see what the next topic is all about, and we go from there.
Oh, I got 500 topics, so we can talk.
Oh yeah, right, I always love talking to you. Okay, buddy. Take care.
All right, brother. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.